Hey, this is Kirk Walden as we launch another year of Coffee with Kirk here on the Pregnancy Help Podcast. And today we're doing a little something different to kick off this second year. I've actually got my daughter Laura in here, and I'm going to introduce her a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about marketing and a little bit about how you can get out there on social media, just some thoughts that we have. Actually, I was going another direction today, and she came in the door, and I said, you know what, I wanted to kick this around with her for a while, so here's my opportunity. So let me introduce Laura. Laura Lambert is Director of Head of Marketing at designbundles.net. She does a lot of DIY and lifestyle stuff in the crafting space, and in fact, you can find her on Instagram at It's Laura Lambert, and you can find her on TikTok as well, same handle, and she's got on those platforms about 400,000 followers, and she's also helped others in their marketing as well. In the last couple of years, she's taken various musicians and people like that up to more than 2 million followers on Instagram. So, Laura, it's great to have you with us today. What I want to do is chat about the pregnancy help arena. Right now, we're in a tough situation, which is AI has come in and it's making it tougher for our Google ads to take hold. It's making it tougher in a lot of areas as we reach out and do marketing. So I want to thank you for being here. And, well, it's great to be here with my kid.
I know. We don't ever get to do this.
Yeah. And so I just yanked her in here. So here we go. As you look at Instagram, and I've had you look at some pregnancy help ministry accounts on Instagram, what are just a few things that we can think about as we're trying to set up and I'm not even going to talk about Facebook because Facebook is where I land.
The dinosaur world. Yeah.
Thank you so much. No, you're right. You're right. But we're going to focus on Instagram and how might we grow a little bit? Because I look at accounts and maybe somebody's got 150 followers or 300, something like that. What are some things we can think about in that area? Because we want to create a presence where people are going and remembering us.
Yeah. I mean, well, and I dog Facebook, but really there is a space for Facebook even still. I actually think we'll give this as a little side note before we jump into Instagram, but Facebook groups are huge. So if you can carve out a niche.
I say niche, you say niche.
Okay, well, I'm going to stick with niche. It feels right.
Okay.
It makes me seem cultured.
You go.
So if you can carve out a niche for a Facebook group that provides value to people, that is a great place to grow a devoted following, especially if you're willing to go live and do all those kinds of things. So there is room for Facebook, but I do think for building an audience, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube Shorts is great. And you don't have to feel like you're tackling all these different platforms. You're making one piece of content, and then you're just making sure you post it to all those platforms.
Okay, and so let's go back to Facebook then. You went into dinosaur world.
I did it.
And I want to say this, if you're going to form a group, would it be like a group talking about relationships and things like that? Because, I mean, you don't really have a group. Let's talk about STI and STD testing or a group.
STDs for all. Facebook.
If you think you're pregnant, that kind of thing. So you're talking about we're reaching them with stuff about relationships and things like that.
Yeah, you could do like, now all of this is off the cuff. So, you have to be patient with me thinking of clever names. But, I mean, you could do support for young moms.
Yep.
And that could be the Facebook group. And you invite anyone who's a young mom, and it's just a place where they can go for inspiration, advice, support, ask their questions, and then you post in there your stuff from time to time. It'd be a great way to promote events. It'd be a great way to promote what you've got going on at your center. But really, the group is about supporting young moms. Or if you want to be even more proactive, like what you're saying,
reaching a woman who's thinking about who's not pregnant now, but when she is, we want her thinking about us.
Right.
If she's thinking abortion is a possibility. So that kind of thing.
Like building positive relationships for young couples. You could do any of those types of things where it feels very community oriented and they feel like that's where they want to go because people post in there and give their advice or ask questions and people are supportive. And then you've all of a sudden positioned yourself as a support for people. And then you are the knowledge power, like you become that naturally. So
I like that.
That's a good way to use Facebook groups. And honestly, that's kind of the tone for, I think, what this whole conversation is going to be, which is you have to be community oriented first. and story oriented first, because storytelling and telling stories on the internet is the ultimate unifier, and it's what people want to watch. Nobody wants to be, quite frankly, nobody wants to be preached at anymore or given a bunch of education. Like, we don't go on Instagram to think more.
That's true. That's true.
We usually go to Instagram or TikTok to think less. And so you have to position what you're doing as entertaining or as relatable. And I think relatable is a good sweet spot for pregnancy centers.
You're talking about speaking outward to people about what they need. And I think about, you took a duo here in town, a couple of teenagers, and they had 700 or 800 followers on Instagram. And within about a year and a half, I believe it was, you had taken them to 850,000 followers, and they were doing duets with Michael Bublé. And I'm like, but what you did with them is you had them thinking about those people out there, not about, we want our music to get out there.
Yeah.
How can we reach them? And I think we're trying to talk about the same thing with pregnancy centers. What is she looking for when she's scrolling?
Right. Yeah. What's your ideal client or consumer looking for, or what do they care about? And I think most of these women, they want to feel supported. They want community. And so there's been lots of really cool accounts. There's a car dealership, actually. This isn't going to come around. There's a car dealership that they have done a fantastic job, because their whole account, they've set it up like The Office, the show.
Yeah.
So everybody is a character, and every video is just entertaining, but it really shares the culture of their dealership. And they don't talk about a single car in any episode, not at all. And their sales have skyrocketed like 300%, because people are just like, well, these are people I would want to do business with. And that is a universal truth of social media, which is, if you can find a way to tell a story, whether it's about your staff, the culture of your center, what you guys like to do, like together, the projects you're building and working on, and you can share it as if you're documenting the experience, you all of a sudden become an approachable community resource that anyone would feel comfortable going to, rather than the dictator of information, which is never where you want to be on social media. So it really is less about creating content and more about documenting the journey of your center and what you're all about. And if you can accomplish that, you're going to start turning the tide on how people view your page.
And I think that's so stinking important, because I do believe that in this space, and we can't be flippant with it and all those guys. I know it's a serious, what we're doing is very serious, but if we can move more toward relationships, as we speak to our audience and bring them in, we can begin to be a little looser and a little more comfortable, get them a little more comfortable with us. Yeah, I was just thinking about that, because when I look at Instagram pages for our pregnancy centers, I see a lot of good stuff, but I do believe we're spending a lot of time really trying to help teach people stuff.
Sure.
And nobody follows, like you said, nobody follows to be taught. I don't follow those accounts to learn stuff, any accounts to learn stuff. I'm getting outside of the pregnancy health space, but I don't normally do that. What I want to do is give me something, maybe I don't know, but I want to know you. I want to know what's going on with you, and to find ways to do that creatively, because I want us, this is something, Laura, that I've been thinking about for a lot of time, and I haven't had an answer. You and I have talked about it, but I think there is a huge opportunity here. When we talk about ministries, we do these SWOT analysis. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities? What are our threats? Well, I see AI is kind of a threat in a way, because it's muting our advertising on the internet.
Sure. Yeah.
Then, Google Ads, they have played with us, and they have worked on their algorithms, I can't even say it, to shut us down and quiet us down. Okay, so that's a threat, but there's a tremendous opportunity here. And that's what I keep coming back to, and I can't stop thinking about it. There's an opportunity for us to create and I'm going to go back to hippie days, which I never was one, but if I was, I would use the word vibe, to create a vibe where they just go, where a young lady out there, maybe her boyfriend, look at us and go, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Those are good people, like your car dealership that you're talking about. People get comfortable with us, And when the unthinkable, at least in their minds, happens, they go, okay, those people I can trust.
Yeah, like, so, you've got my mind. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second.
Oh, boy. Okay, we're going to cut this part out, Larry.
We're going to get ready. No, I think this is important, though, because I used to hear this all the time from clients. I still hear it all the time at design bundles and I tell it to myself sometimes. Our content does bad and we say, oh, the algorithm hates us. I've heard so many people say the algorithm hates me. The reality is they are going to change the algorithm all the time. It changes monthly. I know because I read the updates. It literally changes sometimes weekly. But the reality is the bottom line of the algorithm and the bottom line of every single one of these platforms is they just want to keep people on the platform longer. That is all they care about. So no attempt to game the algorithm will ever outperform bad content, but simultaneously, good content that is engaging, relatable, approachable, entertaining will never be downed by a change in the algorithm.
Because if they're watching Instagram, TikTok, whoever, they're very happy.
Exactly. At the end of the day, if you can keep people watching, that is all that matters. So let's use a specific example. Let's say that your center is preparing for, I'm going to use an example from when I was a child, because you used to have me do the Save a Life Walkathon.
Oh, yeah. And believe me, we didn't use that name with our clients, okay?
I think that's what it was called, right?
That's what it was, but we were Women's Hope Medical Clinic. Yeah.
That's right. I just remember, that's just what sticks in my brain. But anyways, we used to do that. So let's say we were doing the walkathon today.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make a post about it. The natural on-the-nose thing to do would be like, this is what we're doing. I'm going to make a little video saying this is the walkathon and this is why it's important.
Yeah.
Great.
And now, you're taking us outside the reaching client space into our supporters, which is great.
Which that could be a part of it as well.
It is. Okay.
But let's say I wanted to do more. And so let's spend a little extra time thinking about that. What if instead I find somebody on staff who's okay being on camera and who's happy to film, who knows how to use their iPhone? Great. We're going to have her say, this is the day in my life getting ready for our upcoming walkathon. So she wakes up in the morning, she makes her coffee, maybe she talks for a second and says, this is my favorite event of the year. Here's why I love it. She goes to work. She's packing up goodie bags for the supporters who have donated. And she says, I'm so excited to hand these out. This is what's in them. Why don't you take a look with me? Then she's going and checking out the course that they're going to be walking. And she says, I'm just imagining all the people that are going to walk on this course and how much it's going to mean. And this is really our hope as a center, that this brings, excitement around this mission. And she talks about all that. And then she wraps up her day, closes out her office and leaves. And that's the post.
Wow. Okay.
It's like, okay, so now we've gotten to come on this journey with her. She's approachable. She's relatable. We make it entertaining. And that could be a whole different podcast where we can talk about editing. But we make it entertaining and snappy and it's fun to watch. But at the same time, you've shared so much about the culture of your center. You shared so much about your mission. And you shared the practical of what you're up to. So you've done a lot in one post. And it's watchable. It's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, we could do it that way. And not only that, I'll tell you what I used to do. I used to take your brother Joel to do presentations in churches, and he was about 2. And the first thing I'd do is I'd say, well, he'd be up there with me to do the presentation. And I'd say, Joel, why are you here today? And he'd say, I'm being exploited. And so we would have fun that way. Now, as we look at the potential client, we've got, I'll throw this out. Okay, we're thinking about how do we build relationships with those young ladies so that when they reach a point, because we're reaching people who aren't pregnant now, we're trying to reach people who we might need to reach down the road. So I'm wondering, is there something we could do with, say, our sonographer, and she could go through her day, or the receptionist, and this is, hey, meet so-and-so, our receptionist, and she goes through some things or whatever, that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, anything like that would be fantastic. And then once you kind of get comfortable sharing your center and what you guys are all about, you kind of will start to gain momentum. People might start commenting on your posts. Maybe they're asking questions. And that's when you can come in and you can make a video and say, hey, we got this question. We want to answer it. And then it becomes, your education piece becomes a natural outpouring of the community you're building. And it becomes responsive rather than let me teach you about this thing, which is so much more impactful and so much more helpful. And you can also, this is a abrupt segue here, but you said this earlier, and now my brain has come all the way back around.
Millennials, I'm telling you.
Which is, you were talking about AI and how it works against you. Well, you also can get clever about, well, how can we make the things that are innately working against us work for us?
That would be another question I've got.
Yes. So what if you make a video that says, we asked AI what the most common relationship problems teenagers and early 20-somethings face is, and here's what it told us. And then you make a whole series addressing all of those. Or maybe you say, we had, one of the best performing videos I did for a client recently was I had them do a video that said, we had AI create this video for us, and this is what it gave us. And it's not good, right? Like it doesn't do the job. And so then you can make follow-up content to be like, so we decided we wanted to be real people instead. And you show, the value of that. But I think like all of this, the kind of the bottom line of this part of what we're talking about is our tendency is to want to polish things so that we look like we know what we're talking about. Or we want to edit it to make it clean, and we want it to, we want to script out what we're going to say so we sound like we know what so we sound as smart as we are, and so that people will trust us. But on social media, it's just the opposite. Be comfortable, when you're filming, dropping something and leaving it in. Or if you stumble over your words, just leave it in and address it. Or if, something doesn't go to plan, film it and post it and say, just another Monday at the center or whatever it is. And you will do so much more good for yourself than you think you will, because our ultimate goal is not just to be the educational authority for people who might need our center, or to be I don't know the right word, but to be the authority for people who might need our center. But
sure,
that will happen when they walk in the doors. They're going to know that they are in good hands once they get to you, which you were saying that before we hopped on. That the data shows that.
Yes.
Once they walk in the door, they're satisfied.
Yeah, we have huge ratings as far as satisfaction ratings, that sort of thing. And we get a lot of great reviews. There are people who come in and give us terrible reviews who have never been to our centers, but whatever. Now, we get that all the time, have to have them taken down. But yeah, once they get in the door, we're great. And so that's the question that we're answering today is, how do we get them in the door? How do we get them comfortable with us out there? Because there are people who continue to say, you're fake clinics, you're all these kind of things. And here we are with doctors and nurses and all these things, and they're saying we're fake. And I'm like, no, we're not going to. How do we get around that? And you're giving us some good ideas. If we're, and what I loved about what you just said is that we can be vulnerable and we can be self-deprecating, and it's okay. And we can be a little bit funny. I know this is a serious subject, but we just have to find a balance there where we can be kind of fun. And even though it's a tough thing that we're talking about, but they realize, this is a place I can trust. These, like you said, real people. And I think if we can pull that off and we can begin to build followings on Instagram, and what about TikTok? Do you think we need to be making TikTok videos?
Oh, 100% yes. You can post anything you're going to post on Instagram to TikTok, and you should, because why waste the exposure? TikTok is a different algorithm than Instagram in that every video is essentially a standalone piece of content. They don't care what you've posted previously or what you're going to post in the future. Every video has an equal chance of enormous views on its own.
Yes.
So why waste that? You should 100% do that. But I'm going to go back to something you said a second ago that I want to make sure to address, which is you said, we don't want to joke about this. It's a serious subject. And it is a serious subject. But I want to challenge everybody's thinking just a little bit in that it really doesn't matter what we think or what we know. We have to get in the head of our ideal person and what they think and what they know and what is their pain point. What's the problem? What's keeping them from us right now before they need us? What's the wall? And it's that they don't trust us and they don't see us as like them. Because ultimately, on the internet, just like in real life, as humans, our natural tendency is whenever we get into a new group, we're thinking, do these people like the things that I like? And are they like me? Are these people my people? And we do the same thing subconsciously every time we see an Instagram reel or a TikTok. And so that is the barrier that has to be broken. And as much as we revere these topics and we know how serious they are, to them, 80% of the time, they're not even thinking about it.
Well, if they're not pregnant, if they hadn't just taken a test, they're not.
They don't even think they think that will never be them. So yes, it is serious, and we shouldn't make light of anything that we talk about, all the important work that we do at our centers. But in the mind of our ideal person, if they're not pregnant yet, our work is not important to them. And we have to digest that. And that's not a bad thing. But trying to say how important our work is to people who are completely unaware of it and it's not on their mind at all is not going to break that wall down. What's going to break the wall down is being real people who have real issues at a normal workplace, just like anybody else who are trying to make a difference in the world. That's relatable.
That's good. And how's this? Okay. To bring it to them a little bit, could you do a TikTok video or something like that, or an Instagram reel where we're saying, hey, you've got a friend who's pregnant. And how do you talk to them? And not necessarily saying, send them to our center. We're open 8 to 5. That's not what I'm saying. How to talk to them. Can you do a video? And I'm not even talking about role play as much as, hey, I'm a nurse here. I see this all the time.
Yeah.
You have a friend who just came to you in the dorm and she says, oh my word, I'm pregnant. What in the world? What are some things you can, that kind of thing?
Sure. Yeah, that's great. And honestly, so now we're about to get into the...
Let the record show. She just said, I said something great. Okay.
This is where we're going to get into our practical tips section.
Okay.
Which is, the first practical tip is exactly what you're saying, which is anytime you can make something into a series, make it into a series, because then you're going to drive traffic to your page rather than just the individual video. So maybe it's, today we're starting our series of how to be there for your friend who just found out she's pregnant, or whatever you want to call it, And so in this episode, we're going to talk about X, and it's a 60-second or less video where you give them one tip. And then at the end, it's make sure you're following us because we're going to continue this series. And if you have things you want us to address, leave it in the comments below and we'll do it in a future episode. And then it becomes, oh, well, I have this friend and, she completely retreated and didn't even want to be my friend anymore when she found out she was pregnant. Then on the next episode, welcome back. This is our series of how do you blah, 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 blah. We got this comment last week. We want to address it. And then you address it in under 60 seconds and then you keep it going. And all of a sudden you have this kind of cornerstone piece of content that you become known for. You establish your place in the community. You establish yourself as a resource, but also a community-oriented resource. And you're still getting to provide that valuable information, but it's just useful.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I had not thought of that. I guess that's why you're the one who's got the 400,000 followers and all that kind of stuff. Well, I think you've taken us to a great spot where we can say, these are some ideas, think them through, listen to this with your marketing team, listen to this with your staff, and think through what can we do. I think brainstorming is a big thing. Wouldn't you say, Laura?
Yes. I also want to leave them with a parting tip for whenever we get to that point.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, you go ahead with a parting tip and then I'll close this out.
This is incredibly specific. There was no room for it elsewhere in the podcast, but the problem that I see the most with people trying to create a presence on social media is they don't know the value of a good hook. And studies show that people decide whether they're going to scroll or watch your video in under a second. So trying to find ways to hook people from the very beginning is the most important skill you can build as you start this process. So thinking about verbal hooks like, have you ever felt this way? If so, this video is for you. If you are feeling like this video is for you. Let me tell you about my hot take when it comes to such and such. Those are verbal hooks, or it could be a visual hook, like you move the camera really fast right when you start the video. But my best advice is research hooks. Look it up on the interwebs, as Dad would say.
The World Wide Web.
Look it up on the World Wide Web. And look at what other people are doing to hook at the beginning of a video. Your first 3 seconds is the most important thing you can do to build a community on your page. It's the most important thing you can do to build an online community for your center. Work on your hooks.
Well, that's a great hook. Oh, yeah, but you closed with a hook, not open with a hook. We should have done that in the beginning. But Laura, I want to thank you for jumping in and hopping on today. And thank you folks for listening. You have any questions, you can email me, kirk@kirkwalden.com. And of course, you can follow Laura Lambert. It's Laura Lambert, ITS Laura Lambert on TikTok and on Instagram. And you can also find her, all over the place. And I've seen you on a stinking commercial for.
Yeah, that's true. You can find me on Hulu commercials.
Yes.
For Cricut.
Yeah, for Cricut. Yeah, if you have a Cricut or a Glowforge, Laura's the person to follow. Thank you, folks, for listening. If you have questions, email me at kirk@kirkwalden.com. Have a great day.